Hey everybody, let's get started a few seconds early tonight. Why not? It's just the way the music ended because we were busily doing stuff tonight with meetings and Zoom calls and all that sort of stuff. And we didn't get quite the preparation we usually get. So, any moment now, this is going to start going ding, ding, ding. And we will then be at this slide. So there we are. Now, 29, look, that's even, Mr. McCloskey's even done my backup job and got the right date on it. So welcome everybody. Here we are once again at another Gold Monday. Mr. Dobson just joining in. I know we've got a whole bunch of people on tonight. We've got some things we're going to discuss at the end of the presentation tonight, which we've all been hanging out for, but we will get there as the night wears on. So welcome everybody. Let's just get right into this because we are about to launch. And just to be sure, we are expressing our view as affiliates only. This is not company policy. We do not represent the company Karatbars International. We do use their systems. They've got great systems. We just plug into them because they have the best gold program in the world. Let me say that again. They've got the best gold program in the world. And that's what we're here for tonight. So let's have a listen to Ms. Camilla.
Hi there. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are in this beautiful world of ours. We, the team at Gold Rocks, are here to show you how to become a gold saver, which has far better return than traditional savings methods. Let us show you why you should get started today. When you begin saving, you typically have a goal in mind, whether it be buying a house, paying off debt, studying, starting a business, travel, or maybe retirement. We've always been told to work hard and save. The majority of us have only had the following options: maybe holding your cash in an envelope, a jar, or a piggy bank, opening a cash savings account to earn interest, or applying for a loan. But that means debt, and that's something none of us want to get into. Unfortunately, many people don't understand what saving your money by the traditional way actually means. Cash loses an average of 2% per year through inflation. That means if you saved $100 today, it would have the buying power of $90 in 5 years' time. So then what if you put it into a savings account? The average interest rate across the banking system in Australia and New Zealand is 1% per year. So that $100 would have the buying power of $95 in 5 years' time. A little bit better than the cash in an envelope, but you are definitely losing money. So question, what do they do that you don't do yet? The governments, the banks, and the wealthy, what do they do? Simple, they save gold. Robert Kiyosaki, who we all know as the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant, says, gold is money. JP Morgan, one of the most powerful bankers of his era, whose company JP Morgan Chase still exists today, said gold is money. Everything else is credit. And Alan Greenspan, the former head of the Federal Reserve, arguably the most powerful financial institution in the world, says gold is always accepted. And they are just a few examples amongst many others. So why gold? Gold gains an average of 15 to 20% per year. So what if you put your $100 into gold? Well, in 5 years' time, it would be worth at least $175. Would you rather have $95 from your traditional savings account or $175 from your gold savings account? Next question. Why choose our gold and why save with us? Our gold savings account is free to open and has no monthly fees. Our source is the global leader in small increment weights from 0.1 of a gram. And at the time of recording this, 0.1 of a gram was about $10 to $11 Australian. This makes gold accessible to all levels of income. No matter who you are, what you earn, you can now do what was once only available to those with wealth. And helping all people get ahead is something our team at Gold Rocks is passionate about. Our gold is 999.9 gold bullion purity. It has state-of-the-art security against counterfeiting, and our source provides free storage until you choose to have your gold delivered to you. Getting started is as easy as getting back to the person who shared this video with you, registering your free gold savings account, and starting to save your money in gold today. We encourage you to do your own research into all of the information we've shown you. And we look forward to helping you save your future in gold with the team at Gold Rocks. Be blessed.
And thank you, Miss Camilla. So what's next? Set up a free Carrot Bars account if you don't already have one. If you're on the call tonight, this is your first time, get a free account. No hidden commitments, no tricks. You can register as a customer or as an affiliate. It is completely free, completely free. Make sure that you understand that. However, if you register as a customer, you're going to pay a different price for the gold compared to an affiliate. And as an affiliate, you get access to lots of other things that are happening in the world. And remember to abide by the wealth principles. Pay yourself first, establish a residual income, limit your tax exposure, and stay ahead of inflation. That's what we're talking about tonight. Get yourself into a business that makes sure that you fit all these criteria. And I cannot tell you enough how important that all is, because what we've got coming down the road at us economically is ugly. And make sure you follow the wealth principles, as Camilla just said in the chat window. They are supremely important, particularly as we look at the economies of today. So let's have a look at a couple of our sponsors. Easy Shopping Cards, always with us. EasyShoppingCards.com. Get your groceries from Woolies and receive 2% back in gold. Oh, you need a new barbecue? They got barbecues galore as well. You need a Carrot Pay account to be registered in your ESC account. Now, that number, if you're new, will start with 8 and 4 zeros. It'll be 80,000 and something. So it's a very long number, but it starts with 8. You need to have that in your Easy Shopping Cards ID as an affiliate ID. And that means that whenever you buy something in the Easy Shopping Cards system, that your transaction is registered and kept track of by your wallet ID. And yes, it takes a while for the gold to go through the process, although that will improve in October. That looks like the 8 weeks limit is going away. But you'll be able to get 2% if you buy Woolworths gift cards, or Barbecues Galore, it's 4%. Lots of different margins there, but they've got a card for everything. Go down that road and start using electronic gift cards to do your shopping. And you'll be amazed at the amount of money you spend. And what if 2% of that comes back in gold? What if it's only 2%? It's a sizable number. And then we get over to Loveday Vehicle Lubricants, because Mr. Loveday, he's the individual that discovered the King Ludwig's restaurant that we're all going to in October to celebrate Oktoberfest. Dougie is organising 5% gold back. So you buy your oil for your vehicle from Mr. Loveday, 5% back in gold into your Carrot Pay wallet. Now that's a very cool system because there's not much else out there like that. You can't get 5% back on oil anywhere else. That's a really good deal. And I can vouch for the oil. I've used it for years, wouldn't use anything else. We've had it. We've got people that are truckers that use it. We've got people that use it in their vehicles. I know Dan and Jan use it in their vehicles for Skippy Pest Control. Great, great product. So let's move on to our interview segment tonight. And this is really interesting because it came to our attention that somebody who shall remain nameless, but their first name is Roger, got a wad of gold delivered. And luckily, he made a little video about it. So we're going to show you the video and then we're going to talk to him about how this all came together.
This is an exciting day for me. My gold has arrived from Harald. Here's the packaging, here's the manifest, here are the small boxes that hold the cards. Here we have our cash gold in 1 gram, 3 grams and 6 grams. Here we have our cash gold in note paper in 1/10 of a gram, 2/10, 4/10 and 6 gram tenths. Here we have our classic gold in 1 gram, many of those, in 2.5 grams and in 5 grams. We're excited, we've got the gold. Hooray! Bye.
Well, hooray for you, Mr. Roger.
Hooray!
Now, I need to know what triggered you to get that gold delivered. Why did you think, I know, I've got a wad of this gold here, let's get it delivered?
Well, first of all, I bought my first gold in a 5 gram 999.9 ingot in a necklace 38 years ago in in Penang. And I thought it was very valuable then, but I didn't realize how valuable it was until 3 years ago when I joined Carrot Bars. I realized I could buy this on a regular basis, not just for decoration, but for true savings and investment, because now I realize that we all do now, the gold is the only true real money. You asked me why I wanted to get it delivered. I've been saving it for some time. I got a lot more than 100 grams saved, but I thought once I got to 100 grams, I had the idea from somebody that I would get free delivery. Well, that used to be the case, but it no longer is. But the delivery is quite economical. It's about 30 euros, I think I paid for delivery. It took only about 2 or 3 weeks, I think, altogether. I had a bit of a hassle getting the delivery. It should have come last Friday and finally came today. But beautifully packed, no problems at all. All the denominations. I feel so good to be able to touch part of my fortune. I can hold it, touch it, feel it. It's the real thing, and I know that it's worth more every single day that I own it. I can touch it and feel it and so forth. I got it in a very safe place, don't you worry. But I can have access to it quite easily. And I'm really excited to really own and touch and feel the physical 999.9 gold bullion.
Absolutely, and thanks very much. It's amazing to have you on the call because you are our father of this group per se, because you're the guy that first really got involved and started to build something. You got in touch with Brent got in touch with me, and the whole team has grown from your own position where you've branched out and done other things, as has Brent, and so have I. As a percentage of what you do, how much gold do you save on a monthly basis?
I save much more than 10%.
Much more than 10%.
I'd
Okay.
say at least 20%.
Very good. Now, Chris McCabe wants to know where the sock drawer is that you put all this gold. I wouldn't be telling him that because I talk about putting it in the sock drawer.
I have a much more secret and private and accessible place. Don't you worry. No one knows where it is, but I do.
Excellent. That's a great thing. I went to the trouble of going and getting a private vault and organizing that so that I could have my gold stored somewhere that was completely safe. And I used to talk to people about having it in my sock drawer until I watched a video with Mike Maloney on it, and he was asked where he keeps his gold. And he said, well, I don't keep it at home because I stand up in front of people and talk about gold all the time.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to do is have it at home because I'm just making myself a target.
Yeah.
And it was at that point that I got on the internet and looked for a private vault, and I found one here in Redcliffe in Queensland. Now, I know there is something down there in South Australia, somewhere near Adelaide, because I know Brad Seravalli has talked about it.
Mm.
And I encourage everybody, if you have a stash of valuables, go and get a private vault. Do not have a safe deposit box in a bank. You expose yourself to all of the regulations around banks, and that is not a good outcome, I can assure you.
I agree totally.
Absolutely. So, Roger, how have you found, when you think back to when you started, how have you found what you've done with gold to benefit you? Has your gold substantially increased that you started to buy, say, 2 years ago?
Oh yes, well, my gold has increased in value far more than 30%, which of course is very exciting. But even if it stood still, it would still be a very, very sensible thing, because it never ever goes backwards. But we've had a wonderful growth, and the indications are now from all the experts that we could be looking at probably 1,000% increase in the next 6, 12 months, 15 months, who knows, because the gold is now ready to go through the roof and beat its highest ever price before. So we're on the cusp of the wave, and I think we all need to stack as much as we possibly can before it goes up in a huge price rise.
Absolutely, and I'm going to have a video tonight which talks about that, where what the predictions were a couple of months ago have now been blown completely out of the water because of what's happening in the world.
If I may just say a couple more words, Derek, I would strongly urge everybody listening to the call, and all their friends and colleagues and associates and other friends, affiliates who are not even on the call, please take the advice of the reason we joined Carabao in the first place. It is to save gold and help others do the same. And if we're not saving classic gold at least 1 gram per week, per fortnight, or at least per month, then we're missing the boat or missing the whole purpose of Carabao. So we should be sitting on an auto save, monthly, fortnightly, or weekly, with at least 1 gram, or even 2.5 or 5 grams if we can manage it. And then we should be buying cash gold as much as we possibly can with the rest of the money we can find at this particular time, because the dollar is about to crash. The economy is in dire straits, as because we've been discussing, and gold is leading way. So we must, for our own common sense, save as much as we possibly can. And of course, we're getting free storage by the company. So it just makes so much sense.
Absolutely. And Brad Seravalli has typed in that it's called As Good as Gold, and they're in the old Treasury building in the CBD in Adelaide.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
it's an independent
Thank you, Brad.
building, and away you go. 15 kilo vault. He says he thinks it's about $135 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that's
Good
very
advice.
good.
Thank you,
And
Brad.
Brent's saying that every dollar that he's put into gold since he joined has increased over 25%.
Well, that's for sure. I agree, Brad.
Yeah.
And
It's increasing regularly, and it's interesting to see how the world is changing with the environment. Kate's saying with ESCs at our carat bars, or carat pay, it's your carat pay number, Kate. Starts with 8. I think there's then 4 zeros after that, and then there'll be a number. Now, if you haven't got that in there, don't panic. Every transaction is tracked. And obviously, when we go to send gold, ESC will realise that, oh, that's an invalid number, and they'll get in touch with you. So there's no issue about it. We will make sure that it's the right number. Brad Seravalli's offering to give Kate his number just in case. I know that those people in South Australia are like that, Kate. Don't stress. We'll sort him out later. So thanks, Roger. Really appreciate your input. And it was great to see that video, because it's just proof of what we've been talking about for a long time. And it's great to see it. I got 10 grams delivered last Thursday, just of gold that I've accrued through the last couple of months of growing the business and understanding that we get paid in gold as well as euros. And it was just some gold that I got set into my online wallet, and I thought, heck with it, I'll withdraw 10 grams and get them to deliver it.
Just one
Brent,
more word.
you're right.
I will interrupt again, Derek, because obviously about the 100 grams I received, certainly a few of those grams was my free gold as well.
Absolutely. I assumed it was,
Oh, yeah.
Rog. It just works out when you do it in larger lumps, you get to pay less freight because you pay the same amount all the way up to 1 kilo.
That's right.
I figure if we're bringing in a kilo, it's worth bringing it in.
I'm excited, and I'm very happy to have it in my possession.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rog. We'll
Thanks,
talk
guys.
to you later.
I'm on the call. Bye.
Okay, everybody. Make sure that you mark in your calendar the 31st of the 10th this year. We are going to go up to the King Ludwig's at Mullaney. It is a fantastic venue, a wonderful host. She makes it really worthwhile. We had an absolutely rip-roaring time last time. McCloskey's attempting to drink the bar dry. I suggest that you might want to get in early. So there's lots of people talking about coming. I need you to send an email to cwphillips007@gmail.com. We need to let them know reasonably soon whether we're talking about booking out the whole venue or just one of the rooms. So the more people that we get to send an email, the better. We sort of have a heads up on what's happening down the road. So make sure that you do that. It is a fantastic day. We will be able to make sure that you enjoy yourself. Now, let's look around and make sure that we understand what's going on. If you've got a phone in the pipeline, you will get an email from DHL. And make sure that you figure out when they're going to deliver it. Now, just recently, I had a shout out from Dan McCloskey because he got an email from DHL to say that 6 phones were going to be delivered. And they had all sorts of bizarre names and addresses on them. Why they thought Dan McCloskey needed 6 phones is beyond me. But no, I had not arranged secretly for 6 phones to be delivered. It just happened. And somehow or other DHL decided that he needed 6 phones and not 1. So just pay attention. When you get the email, make sure it's addressed to you. Make sure you understand what's going on with it. So let's look at some market warnings. I say this every week. I can't tell you often enough. The banks do not like us buying gold or cryptocurrency. So be aware, not afraid, because we got gold, baby. And you're right, Mr. Dobson, we got gold. Make sure that you understand this is the place where you need to be. Now, the next little video is a bit long. It's about 10 or 15 minutes, but there's so much in it that I couldn't cut it down. I need you to understand what this is talking about. We have access to a business that is going to short circuit everything that's happening on the planet. And it's really important that you understand the value of that.
Gold prices have been on a tear in the last week. Where are prices headed from here? Joining me today is Dan Oliver, founder of Mermican Capital, joining us all the way from the Minds of Money Online Connect. Dan, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
This week, stocks are up, gold's up. What's going on? How do you feel about the markets? What's your sentiment?
My sentiment is if the Fed keeps printing, prices go up. I mean, that's what they do. That's their mandate, is to keep inflation at 2%. And of course, when the panic happened in March, their whole thesis was going off the rail, which is you got to keep inflation going, or the whole system goes in reverse. When you have a huge credit bubble, when you have a bank system that's levered up 10 10, 20, 30 to 1, right? Any decline in asset prices makes the whole thing unravel. So that's their mandate. It's been their mandate for decades, and they simply cannot allow prices to go down. So that's where they're printing money.
But I mean, 1766, 67 is where gold's trading in today on Tuesday. We're seeing near record highs. We're not quite there at 1920 levels yet, but we're seeing a climb towards 2011 high levels. Like you said, the Fed's been printing money. Clearly, gold is not really being traded as a safe haven asset now, is it? Because it's going up in tandem with stocks. Would you agree with that statement?
Well, I think it's more complex than that. I mean, I think when we think about Fed printing, if we think more on a detailed basis, QE in 2009 is very different than QE today. QE in 2009 was about a credit collapse. The banks had no reserves because they lost a bunch of money, and the Fed's mandate was, okay, we'll print the money. What that really meant was we'll give the banks new reserves. They can lever up the reserves and fund capital assets. As what banks mostly do is fund buildings and ships and airplanes, that kind of thing. And that gives you the Keynesian sugar high. You get commodity prices rising because they need to buy commodities to build things. You get lots of employment, you get lots of tax revenue, all that stuff. And the normal cycle is you get overcapacity, and then rents fall because prices go down when you get too much capacity, and you want into in a crash. That's a normal cycle. And this is very, very, very different. The government mandated a total shutdown of the economy because of the virus, and the Fed's printing money not to create that Keynesian sugar high, but to allow companies the cash they need just to make their payments. I mean, their current expenditures. And so this is not a credit inflation; it's monetary debasement, and those are two very different things. Both involve rising prices, but they're entirely different phenomena. And what we're facing is monetary debasement. Gold doesn't like credit inflation. Gold likes deflation. Gold loves monetary debasement, and that's where we are, and that's why gold's responding.
So just in the equities market, are equities investors pricing in a recovery to pre-COVID levels, or are they pricing in further growth from here? Because we're seeing the S&P 500 and a lot of broad indices stall at around current levels for quite a few days, maybe even weeks. It's having a hard time breaking past the February highs. What do you think? Do you think that the Fed stimulus is meant to grow the economy at 2-3%, or is it meant to just stop the economy from falling any further?
Yeah, you know what? When Powell was asked, "Are you worried about inflation?" When in the money printing in a recent conference, he said, "Well, there was no inflation in 2009." Again, it was totally different. And also said, "We're just not worried about that. We're worried about survival right now." I think what the stock market's doing is, as you know, the entire corporate world has been a debt binge because the Fed lowered rates so far. They borrowed money to buy back their own shares, became incredibly levered. What the Fed's doing now is they're saying, "Hey, look, we have to devalue the dollar." Well, if you're a corporation and you got a whole bunch of debt, and all of a sudden the real value of the debt's going down, that by definition increases your equity value. And so I think a lot of the equity run is a rational response to the realization of the market. The Fed is not going to allow these debts to bring down these companies. And as I say, therefore, even with lower growth, the equity value goes out. Gold is much more profound than it will be in the traditional markets.
And last year, you talked about $3,000 gold prices. Obviously, the monetary situation today is very much different than it was a year ago. How has your forecast changed? Has it changed?
Well, yes, it has changed. I'm at 10,000 now, and the reason is, this is the numbers that I've had. I mean, the way I look at the gold is not gold in terms of dollars. Gold has been money for 4,000 years because it's the most stable element. And so I think what's the dollar? And the definition of a dollar today is a unit of liability of the Federal Reserve. And so it's very easy. You say, okay, well, what are the Federal Reserve's assets and what are their liabilities, right? Well, their assets include some gold. They say they've 300 tons of gold on their balance sheet, right? And the other assets are treasury bonds, yielding almost nothing from an totally insolvent Congress, right? And what's the liability? The dollar. That's what the liability is. And so my point is that when you project a crash in the value of the other assets of the Fed, i.e. the mortgage bonds that they own, the treasury bonds that they own, all these new funky commercial debt that they're buying, some of it sub-investment grade. When those things crash, the Fed will find its assets completely stripped of value, or not completely, but a big impairment, and that will have a direct influence on the dollar. So if you just crunch the numbers, you say, what happens when the market stages a run on the Fed? What does that look like? What it looks like is the price of gold rising to a price that balances the Fed's balance sheet. And as the Fed increases the balance sheet size, that equilibrium number goes higher and higher and higher. And so the Fed, as you know, has been at a massive purchasing spree because of the virus situation. And so therefore, the equilibrium price of gold is going up commensurately. And so the numbers now to balance that balance sheet are enormously high. And as you also know, they had this idea, they unwind this stuff. Well, that idea was exploded in 2018-19 when they tried to reduce the balance sheet and discovered they got a tiny bit into it and the whole economy started melting down. Don't forget that the financial situation was weakening way back in September, long before the virus presented itself. So this is not a virus story. This is a credit bubble story, and the virus just made it that much worse.
Okay, you've talked about the idea of excess capacity coming out of quantitative easing. Can you talk to us about how that would impact prices today and potentially how inflation could be impacted by excess capacity?
Yeah, sure. So the way a bubble usually works, the Fed prints a bunch of money. Right? More precise, the banks create the money through the fracture mechanism. The Fed's just there to backstop them when they get into trouble. So the banks do that. Rates go too low, and it's just basic economics. If you look at a discounted cash flow analysis, the more capital intense, the more long-term your cash flows of your project are, the more influenced they are by discount rates. So as discount rates fall, as interest rates, the cost of money goes down, it incentivizes rational economic actors to go build really long-term assets like real estate, like buildings, like all those fun things I mentioned before, right? And you get overcapacity, and when you overcapacity, you can't charge the same rate you could before. And so what happens is that those projects start to run out of cash to pay their debts. Now, usually what happens is the Fed runs in and prints a bunch of money to allow them to keep doing that. What's happening now is this is like a perfect storm where the whole world is busy building this overcapacity, and then all of a sudden demand went to zero or close to zero. And so it became very starkly evident how mismatched investment has been to consumer demand. And so the Fed's only choice to keep this pyramid from falling over is to print enough money to create demand for that overcapacity. And that is a very large number indeed, and that's what they're doing. The
Fed has shown us that the new reality is just stimulus whenever there's trouble. Would that statement be accurate, do you think?
I mean, that's been accurate since the 1920s. So yeah, nothing new there. What's new is the magnitude of it. That's what's changed.
If the Fed can just declare that additional money printed actually does have value, what's stopping them from indirectly declaring then that competing assets like gold shouldn't have value? We've seen Nixon take gold off the gold standard, in the 70s. What's stopping the government from just saying, hey, look, the dollar is really the most important fiat currency or any currency today, and that's what investors should be buying?
Yeah, I think one of the fundamental lessons of history is that economics are more powerful than government. I mean, Nixon might have said gold's not money, but when you look at the way gold behaves, it hasn't changed at all. What's changed is the dollar. If you look at the gold commodity ratio, for example, and you over a couple of hundred years, you can't see where 1971 is because some president says gold's not money. That doesn't mean the market stopped making it money. Gold is still money because it's the least volatile element. And you can see that if you look at oil prices in terms of dollars since 71, the annual standard deviation is 64%. You look in terms of gold is 40%. So the market still prices gold as money, and so it doesn't matter what the Fed says. Now, again, right now, the Fed has power because the dollar is a gold reserve currency, because there's $90 trillion of dollar-denominated debt. People need dollars to pay their debts, and that creates a lot of demand for dollars. That's true. But as other countries, regional countries, systems like Russia and China peel away from the dollar in the Middle East, as people either pay their debts back or don't take debts out in dollars or default on them, that demand goes away. And the Fed's printing so much money that the danger is people have enough money to pay their debts back, and then all of a sudden the demand for dollars goes way, way, way down.
Last question for you, Dan. How do you feel about investments overall post-COVID? We've seen so many businesses fail. Some investors have argued that they were going to fail anyway. This just expedited the process. A lot of tech companies have done very well, and some fund managers have shifted allocation that way. What's your personal sentiment? How has your thesis changed?
Yeah, my personal sentiment is that if you're a really big company, you can get free money from the Fed right now, right? And so you're not going under. And if you're a little company, good luck to you. I mean, there are programs you got to apply. It's difficult. You get denied. You don't fill the box in right. Whatever it might be, they run out of money. So one of the effects of this is going to be is that economic power is going to concentrate even more. I mean, the banking system concentrates economic power anyway. If you look at any industry the last 30 years, there's been massive amounts of concentration. But this will just accelerate the process. And as economies concentrate, the consumer really gets hurt because you wind up with monopolies. When you wind up with oligopolies, you get less consumer choice, you get higher prices, and the work gets worse. There's less competition for workers. It's just a disaster. And so I think that the effect of this is going to be a much worse economy going forward with less opportunity for people. But also, the only thing that keeps this thing going is accelerating money printing. And that's going to help the gold space, and it's going to help the junior space most of all.
Could this happen when investors wake up one day and the Fed just declares that they're going to stop printing money? Would that be a real risk?
They can't do that. They can't do that. I mean, because remember, the biggest there on the planet is the federal government, right? So it's all over and say, well, look, you know, like in the housing bill popped, I mean, who got wiped out? You know, the strippers who own 10 houses, and they were in trouble. But the average guy, you know, they saved the average guy long before he was in default because they had to. Because if that guy fails, the federal government fails, and the big companies fail, and the banks fail, and they can't allow that. So yeah, if you're way out in the curve, you know, you might have problems. But as long as you can survive longer than Chase, you're going to be okay because the Fed's never going to let that happen.
Fair enough. All right. Fantastic thoughts from you, Dan. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching. We'll have much more for you from the Minds of Money Online Connect Conference. Stay tuned.
So there's a whole lot of information in there. The one that I found the most interesting was when he talked about the fact that every dollar that the central banks print is a liability on their books. Every single dollar. So if you're in America, you're in Europe, you're in Australia, you're in New Zealand, every single dollar, every cent, whatever your medium of currency is, every one of them that they print is adding debt to the system. And we've talked religiously about the fact that if you're in the fiat currency system, that's a debt-based economy. We're in the gold business. Gold is not debt. You need to do everything you can to get yourself out of the debt-based economy. And all I can say is get onto YouTube, watch enough commentators, understand what's coming. This guy talked about there being $90 trillion in US dollar-denominated debt in the world. 90 trillion. That's a massive number. It's just huge. And it all began way back when they started to print money from the central banks. And it's really just an amazing outcome when we see what's happening today. And yes, it is a debt bubble. Okay, let's look at some world news. How bad is the US news really? Now, this is a bit interesting today because I had about 50 pages of information that came up in my usual feeds that I wanted to take a snippet out of. And this is what I came up with as a summary. Roughly 50 million unemployed in the USA today. Do we need to say anything else? 50 million people. Now, you can argue the toss about whether that's including this person or that person, but effectively, when you look at the summaries and work it out, it's about 50 million unemployed people in the USA today. Same thing is happening here in Australia, although our numbers are not as high because we have a government-funded program to keep people on the employed list. Now, what's going to happen in not too many weeks when that comes to an end? All of those people that are on that program will magically be unemployed. And yes, Brad, that's 2.5 times the Australian population. That is a massive number. They're unemployed. And that's why you have civil unrest happening. You have lots of information coming out of America about areas like in Seattle, where they now have an area of Seattle, one of my very favorite cities in the world, that has now declared its independence from the United States. Now, you don't have to think very long about that to realize what that physically means. That will not be allowed to stand. There will be very serious clashes in Seattle over that area. And it's very sad. It's happening in other parts of America as well. But it shocked me when I read about Seattle, because that's one of my very favorite cities in the world. It's spectacularly beautiful. It sits on Puget Sound. It's amazing. Okay. Welcome to 2020, you tinfoil hat-wearing aficionados. Every week our information gets worse, but don't panic, Jonesy. We got gold, baby. We got gold. And that's what our business is built on. Forget about all the other background stuff. Forget about all the other stuff on the side that's happening. Yep, focus on the gold. We got gold. And this is what's happening. 1 year average, 28%. Let me say that again. Our average return. Now, I bought some gold. Brent made me buy gold back in June last year, a gram, because I thought that was outrageous that I would have to buy a gram of gold. Well, guess what? I've had a 28% yield on that. It's really hard for me to complain when that's happening. 419% in 20 years. Can't argue with that. Annual. Now watch this space, because now they're talking about $25,000 an ounce. Is that going to really happen? I don't know. But that's what some of the people are talking about. We just listened to a video where the guy talked about $10,000 an ounce. $10,000 an ounce. That's just, wow. That's a lot. The scary thing about that is that means that our dollar currency, our fiat money, has gone down that far. It's not that gold has gone up. It's that our currency has collapsed. And yes, Dan, it's about $800 a gram. A gram, people. $800 a gram. That's amazing. And when I bought my first gram of gold, I think Brent walked me through it. I think it was about $75 a gram, and now we're looking at a tenfold increase in that in the very near future. So in the last 20 years, 31 grams in 2000 was 450. Today, 2,500. That is a tidy increase, and your money, your cash, has lost 54.28% of its value. If you don't understand that simple maths, you're in the wrong game. Go and start collecting dollar coins, because you're going to need it. We have a new e-wallet program, should launch this week. We've been waiting for it for a week or so. It should be in the back office this week. We've all got, well, those of us that are building the business would have money in that system today that we're waiting to get transferred out so we can pay some bills, spend it, all that stuff. The new system will let you transfer money to your bank account or just pay bills from it. That's a really good deal. And it's a lot cheaper than the old system that we had. So make sure that you understand the benefit of that. You can get a card sent to you for €6 if you really need one. My understanding is it's a virtual card, so you can load it on your phone, do all sorts of things with it. But at the end of the day, it's cheaper than what we had before and works better. So make sure that you get your head around that as time goes on. If anyone's got any questions about that system, now would be a good time to ask them, or I can move right on to the next bit. Put your hand up, unmute, type a question. If you're a typist that's faster than me, that's not hard. You can type it in the window box there and we'll do our best to answer it. Where will this be found? In the back office. It will be tied to where it says MasterCard, etc. It will be in that new area there. There'll be a new area there, Brad. I'm hoping that we keep the history of our current MasterCard. I'm going to take a copy of the MasterCard transactions I've had, just so that I've got a backup of it in the event that they completely remove it, because I want to know exactly where I got money from and where it ended up, all that sort of stuff. So it should be in there. I clicked in there this morning and it hadn't changed, so let's look for that to happen in the next couple of days. Now, we're going to move on to the new subject, the new video from Harald. There are lots of interpretations on Facebook and YouTube about what Harald Seitz presented. And Richard, no, I don't have a day. It'll be sometime this week is all I know. The problem with what's happening on Facebook and YouTube is it's somebody's third-party opinion. Now, the reason we haven't published information about this yet is the video presented 50 questions, none of which have been explained. And I got to tell you, I am completely over listening to people in Facebook, watching YouTube videos and trying to work out what he said. I have asked one of the board members to answer these questions that came from the video. And until I get them, we're not going to try and take any guesses. At the moment, what we know, there will be a new card system. There will be a new stable coin based on gold. In fact, backed by gold, put in an independent security firm. Initially, it was said that it was a bank. I believe it's now a security company, not a bank, which I personally find very comforting, because I was very concerned if they were going to go back to the banking system to store the gold that we were using in transactions. What I find interesting is that we're getting half of the information from a German video, and the text in the video actually doesn't make sense. So we've specifically asked a lot of questions to one of the board members and said, please explain this. Now, the frustrating thing was they sent an email back initially to say, oh, just watch Crypto Steve's video. He does a great job of explaining what's happening. No, I'm sorry, he doesn't. The very first thing I watched was a statement that he made about the stable coin, and it was completely inaccurate. So, and I know that because it says right on screen that he's wrong. So I'm completely over guessing. I don't want to know what someone thinks. I want someone from the board to tell us exactly what's happening. And until we get that, we're going to refrain from making too many comments. What I know is we will have a gold-backed coin. The gold will be in a vault in Switzerland, and it will be audited monthly. Okay. And yes, Brad, it needs to come from the board. That's exactly correct. And that was my response to the person that said, watch Crypto Steve's video. I'm sorry. We've been told by the company repeatedly, if it's not in the news section, it's not true. And that's what I'm trying to get around. So we need to get some clarifications, because the Jinglish that Harald talked about was not good. I think he's an interesting bloke. I think one of the criticisms of him recently was that he does a whole lot of business on a handshake. Personally, I think that's fantastic, because if the man has enough integrity to do business on a handshake, that's great. But I'm over trying to second guess what the company's doing. I need it in writing. I need them to send me something that explains what they've just published. And until we get that, we're not going to make too many comments on the new system, because none of it actually makes sense when you try and join it all together. I know there's been lots of comments in Team 113, lots of people talking about, oh, you should have known this and that. None of it's right. None of it adds up. So until we get a statement from the company, we're going to refrain from posting something on social media or in public. So has anyone got any questions about that? Is there anything someone can ask a question that I can answer at this point? Yes, I know there's an open mic call on Wednesday, Jeff. I have been on many of them, and they make a point of only asking new people to ask questions. And Graham, yes, Harold does say repeatedly, if it's not in the back office, it may not be correct. And that's why we're trying to get some explanations from the office. When we get an explanation, we will know what's happening. But at the moment, Jinglish is not one of my best languages. I'm trying to work out what he said. Correct, Brad. I don't think there's too many of us. Now, I did show some of it to Dan McCloskey, and he broke into German beer drinking songs. I hope we do, Roger. But I can tell you it's been a challenge. I've been asking our further upline in America, and I have had silence as a result. So we're trying to get ourselves together and get an actual written explanation, because without that, we're completely in the dark. And as some of you may know, I'm overdoing that. I've been down that road one too many times. So we want an explanation. We want to know exactly what's happening. And when we have that, we will actually be able to talk about it and have a general discussion. So, Mr. McCloskey, who's iPhone waiting to join? Anybody else got any questions? Mr. Dobson's there. Brent, why don't you tell us what you're doing in Bundaberg other than drinking rum? See, he's already had several rums and he can't work how to unmute himself. Isn't that interesting? Yes, we will have a new video shortly, Roger. Rumour has it that there's another one coming out on the 1st. But at the moment, as I said, that is a rumour. Michael's saying, what determines left or right placement of new members? If you go into your dual team system in your back office, Michael, you will see one of the buttons underneath your block of information is placement. And it will be either set on automatic, left or right. So make sure that you get an idea, get back in touch with Jan or Dan, and we can talk you through how to set that. Effectively, you just click on the drop-down button and it will say left, right, automatic, or the other option is placement, where you can name somebody and put new people down there.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, mate. Were you asking to me a minute ago?
I did, but I was concerned that you'd had too much rum given where you were.
I can guarantee I haven't had a rum yet. Okay?
Yet. Okay.
I am in Bundaberg, yes. And no, sorry, mate. I just, dinner arrived and I missed a couple of things there and saw your question. Well, is there something that you were asking?
I was asking you what you were doing in Bundaberg other than drinking rum.
Well, no, I'm working, mate. I'm working. I'm just out of town for a couple of days, but yes,
right, working. Yep, that would be working just up the street from the rum distillery.
Well, there's gold. I had to go past Gympie and I stopped in the Gold Rocks Cafe there, and there could be gold in this area, you know.
Excellent. Good work, mate.
Sorry, mate. No, I was wondering. There's a great call tonight, by the way, and I think we have a record number of people. Very exciting.
Yeah, I think we got over the 60, so that's very cool.
Yeah, well,
Michael got that done, but do I ever place on the right side? Yes, you will. Given your business, you'll look at what's going on there, Michael, and you'll place them where you get the best benefit after a while. Yes, great, everybody. Thanks for coming along. If there's no more questions, we'll call it a night, and I will attempt to get this video up on YouTube. But rest assured, as soon as we have some actual information from Harald, we will post it. We will get it out there. We'll do a special call or something. We'll get it out to you as quickly as we can. So thanks, everyone, for coming along. We appreciate your attendance, and we hope you have a golden night, and we will see you on the beaches of the world. Have a golden evening.